Hello everyone and welcome to Leonora AstroTarot. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know how many readers there are on YouTube. There is just so many readers that it must be hard to know where exactly to click and spend your time. So I am very genuinely happy that you decide to spend some time with me. Today I'm going to be doing a reading all about the potential for you and whoever it is that you have on your mind. So if you have someone in mind, and perhaps if you have more than one person on your mind, we're going to have a look what the potential is between you and them as it stands. So when you are finding this reading, this is a timeless reading, so this is the potential of the energy as you are watching it. And I have to say, these are general readings, so not everything will apply, and you always have to exercise discernment when it comes to these kinds of readings, right? Because so many people watch them. You should never give away your sort of fate, right, to some random person on the internet. It really is the intention for these readings are to provide guidance and clarity, and so that you can feel seen in your story and know that you are not alone in it. It is not about prophesizing the future, because it's energy, right? And what may be true today may be quite different a month from now. So we're really looking at a snapshot of the current energies and the way it's going. It does not mean that it will stay that way forever. Always go with what you know to be true, right? So if it's not clicking for you, then just click off. I think I made my point of that. And like I said, these are general readings, so some of it may be meant for you, and other parts are for other people. If you do want a more personalized reading, I do offer both personal tarot readings and astrology readings, and all of the info about that is down in the description box below. You can reach out to me at leonora.astrotarot@gmail.com. But today we're asking about the potential of your connection, and we have 4 groups here. Number 1 is the Amethyst. Number 2 is the pink Tourmaline. Number 3 is the Labradorite, and number 4 over here is the red Calcite. So go with wherever pings you. You're more than welcome to pick more than one group, and of course if you have more than one person in mind, then check out as many as you want. It's up to you. Okay, so I will leave you for a moment to pick your pile, and I will see you in your reading. Bye. Hello, pile 1, and welcome to your reading. You picked the Amethyst, and today we are asking all about the potential in your connection. So whoever it is that you have on your mind today, we're going to be looking at the current energies, the current potential, and of course, a lot can happen. This is true for the moment in which you encounter this reading. So whether that's as I post it, and whether it's a year from now, it's when you were supposed to see it. But energy is always subject to change, and not every potential will be fulfilled. People make decisions. You always have free will, as does everyone else. But we want to know where things currently stand, and whether the direction that the energy looks like it's going in. So pile 1, let's have a look here at what you have. We have the oyster. Interesting. We have this blue spiral in reverse in the Supra deck. Some of the cards in this deck don't have names. We have the nest, we have the swan, lovely. We have the 10 of wands, the ace of swords, we have the wheel of fortune, we have the universe, love that card. We have the chariot in the major arcana Leonora Carrington deck. We also have the flame. Interesting. We have the regenerate. We have some bonus tarot here that I'm going to look at the end for some more information about your read, pile 1. So let me just check this frame and you can see everything. I'll just shuffle this up a little bit. Yeah, so let's get into this potential as it stands, right? And interesting, because the oyster is sort of all about that, what's hidden, right? Sort of hidden potential. I do think that at least one person in this equation, so I'm going to be sort of looking at person A over here, and person B will refer to them as the oyster and the swan. Identify with whoever you identify with, Pole 1. Yeah, you'll know what feels right for you. But this oyster, I am feeling like this oyster energy is kind of very, very invested in the potential and is very invested in fulfilling a potential that they have with this swan. Yeah. Ooh, if I can pick up this oyster card. Yeah, but with the oyster, there's something hidden here, right? So there's a lot of unknowns surrounding this. There's a lot that's not being said, I'm feeling, but this oyster is really quite driven to speak on this, but at least to explore it. This oyster is very determined, I'm feeling. But they also, yeah, there's this sense of having their sights set on, I suppose, the swan, in a very, very kind of single-minded, very kind of, they're very like pulled lens in terms of having designs on the swan. Let's say this oyster knows what they want and they want this swan, right? But there's this reversal here in this oracle deck right next to this oyster, and we have this spiral which is sort of repeated on the image of the oyster, right? There's blue, so this is sort of the throat chakra. It's all about speaking. There's a lot of blue around this swan as well. I do think a lot isn't being said. There's a lot that this oyster wants to say that they aren't or haven't, or they don't feel like they can, or the way that this the spiral here and the way it's reversed to there, it's like a can't won't thing, right? Can they or won't they, or there's something tongue-tied about this. This oyster wants to speak, but they're struggling to find the right words. They are going round and round in circles in terms of what exactly to say, and it feels very high stakes to them because there's a sense of wanting to win over the swan. I think they want to win this swan who they perceive as being quite a prize. They may be aware of other people around the swan, or that the swan is probably quite desirable to more than just them. So there's this real sort of calculated sense. This narrative is looking familiar. So if you've seen any of my past videos, I think I am picking up on similar storylines that have already kind of showed up in my readings. My channel is still pretty new, so yeah. If you are resonating with this, or as we go on, then do check back, and I'm sure I'll sort of pick up on it too at a later date. But there's something that this oyster wants to speak on, but they are struggling. They're going around in a loop. They're making themselves sort of a little crazy about it. But yeah, this oyster is all about the potential here. This is what we want to know about. What is the potential? And this oyster is sort of very much all about that. Like they just feel like there's so much to gain here in this situation with the swan, but there's this sense of being the situation itself they have placed on a pedestal, and there's a huge amount of pressure that this oyster has placed on themselves to get something right. But because of that, there's a kind of perfectionist tendency that they have to woo or win this swan in the right way, that it's like, well, that's not that's a good way to kind of barricade yourself into not acting because you think there's only one way to go around it. And it's just like procrastination, right? This oyster, for whatever reason, feels like they can't act yet, or they won't, or something like that, because they want to get something exactly right. That's the energy that I'm feeling. So the nest here between, this is more the swan's energy I'm feeling, and this swan is all about security, is creating a sense of peace for themselves, and what is lasting, and what is fruitful, and what has the potential to grow. This swan, I'm not sure how focused this swan is on the oyster. It seems, the oyster obviously doesn't have a face here, but the swan is sort of facing away from the oyster, or is moving in a different direction. I do think the swan is very focused with this nest energy on creating a sense of security for themselves, whatever that looks like for the swan. It's like the swan seems to be driven towards a kind of authenticity, or there's something like there's going to be no half measures in the swan's life. I feel like the swan has maybe put up with quite a lot of bullshit in the past, not necessarily from the oyster, although in some cases that could be true. But at this point, this swan is very focused on things being lasting and maintaining a sense of personal peace. Perhaps this swan has survived a lot. And they just don't want to compromise some sense of peace of mind that they have achieved, and therefore they're applying a kind of healthy scrutiny, I would say, on anything that is coming into their orbit, anything that's entering their energy, because they only want things that are true and authentic, or things that just feel right to them. So where this oyster fits into that, I'm not quite sure yet, but we will see. So we do have this flame here in this archetype deck. That's telling us something about the overall energy here. And of course the flame, it's like that. In many cases I do think that this oyster swan scenario is it's not new, it's not fresh. This has been going on for a while, whether it's they have a long history together, whoever you identify with in this scenario, pile one, there's something is enduring here. This flame is sort of giving me kind of eternal flame vibes. It's like someone is holding a torch, maybe both people are holding a torch, but either way it's enduring. It hasn't gone out yet, but maybe that's the thing here. Maybe the oyster is aware of a lot should have killed off this love. You know, if it's love or the potential for love, right? A lot should have sort of put this flame out at this point, but it's still going. For sure, this oyster is holding a torch. I don't know if this one is to the same extent, or if they are a tool. I'm getting more of the oyster's energy at the moment, but I do think there is something mutual about this, or there was at some point. It was a very mutual, shared flame. But there's something just enduring, and I think that the oyster certainly feels like that it's always going to be the case, that whatever happens, they're not going to be able to forget about the swan. They feel as if they haven't, and a lot has come between them, or a lot has happened here. This has been over a period of time. It's been kind of a long and winding road for the oyster and the swan. So a lot should have destroyed this potential. We are talking about potential here, so it's not like the history for each of you that picked this pile could look different. For some, more may have been invested into it. For instance, for some of you, perhaps you did have some kind of relationship with this person. For others, maybe it was more of a potential. It was potential that didn't. We're asking about potential, so it's probably not the kind of situation where you had a long marriage and you had a family, although it could be, because, there's potential left of things, right? I do think that these two have a long history. Whatever that looks like, it will look different for each, but it's like this sense that this flame should have gone out, but it hasn't. So this oyster feels like that it never will, that they'll never really get over the swan. It's like... And there is a little bit of, they could look for other people. They could find a different kind of swan, but it's not their swan. And this swan is their special swan. Swans, of course, are very monogamous creatures. They mate for life, and there's sort of an echo of the swan here on this lovely card. It definitely seems to me like this oyster feels this way. The swan seems just more like, the swan may be very aware of the same things that the oyster is thinking about, but maybe feels as if that potential has dried up and their priorities have changed. Whereas the oyster seems much more invested in fixing and mending this and trying to sort of save some kind of potential. I mean, we have the regenerate card here under the flame. So this oyster does want to revive something, but it means it also suggests that something has died, or it has weakened, or it has deteriorated, and it requires effort to regenerate it. It's not just going to organically revive itself. But I think the oyster is aware of having to put in work. But yeah, this high stakes feeling I was picking up initially of that it has to be done the right way, otherwise it could be messed up, and all of this, because perhaps there's been more than one try at kind of, there's cycles here, right? And perhaps the oyster and the swan have gone through many cycles here, and yet there's still this sense of untapped potential. There's still that the oyster is very determined to salvage, right? It's the oyster's energy is very active. The swan's energy is very passive right now as I'm checking into it. The Ten of Wands here is a card that speaks of burdens, right? It's carrying a heavy load, and it's underneath the oyster, and I feel like it's connected to this flame, this idea of endurance, right? The oyster may have tried to move on from the swan, maybe more than once. But they have come into this sense of acceptance that they kind of can't, or at least they can't unless they make some kind of attempt to actually really live out this potential. Maybe these things that have happened in the past, there's been some kind of thwarted attempts, or attempts that just like didn't amount to anything. There's still such a sense that there's something here that has to happen. And it's the oyster that has to make it happen, they feel, because otherwise it's just like it's never going to, there's this feeling that they can't get over the swan no matter how hard they try. It's like they're carrying the weight of these feelings for the swan, and they have been, I think, for a long time. This flame is really enduring for them, and there's just like the way this person on the ten of Wands here is sort of has their hand over their face. It's like they've tried to bury their head in the sand for whatever reason. Pile 1, like this person has tried to bury these feelings, but with the Ten of Wands, it's like it's the burden that you carry, right? So it hasn't worked in the past when they have tried to bury this, and when they have tried to walk away, when they've tried to replace the swan. It hasn't worked for them, and they are acutely aware of they can't fool themselves this time into believing that they can, maybe they can't be with the swan. But it's about having clarity. There hasn't been clarity here, and this is what the Ace of Swords is all about. I always think of the Ace of Swords as the sword of truth, right? It's either information that clears the air, or some kind of conversation that clears the air and that slices through any kind of confusion here. It's either, and this is what is really needed, but it's underneath this spiral, this blue spiral, which I was feeling was connected to the need to speak something, and this person, the oyster, going round and round in circles in terms of how to actually go about this. It's above the Ace of Swords, and this Ace of Swords is just like, it's clarity, it's understanding what's real and what's not, clearing out what is fantasy from what is reality and this potential. This oyster may have a lot of fantasies about this potential with the swan, and maybe they've got a lot of pleasure out of those fantasies, like in more ways than one, I don't know. The way here, this on this card, and this is the Moonchild deck, this sword is sort of slicing through an entire building and into this like flowery sky. It's interesting, right? So the building is sort of like a concrete structure, a real structure, but it's parting and it's giving way to this dreamlike, flowery skies. There's this importance here for the oyster in terms of sorting, what is the real potential here, and what is just a dream. The swan is very dreamy to the oyster. The swan is sort of their dream person. Whether that was always the case and whether they always recognize that, I don't know. But they feel it now, that the swan is their everything, their sort of eternal flame. They'll never get over the swan, they'll never replace the swan. This is the kind of heavy burden, Ten of Wands situation it is to the oyster. But a conversation has to take place, and the air needs to be cleared, and there's something very scary about this, because it means illusions can be shattered, and that could look any number of ways. So it may be simply the fantasy life that the oyster has built around themselves and the swan about a potential future, but it's also has to do with more than that. It has to do with what has happened in the past between themselves and the swan. So there's a long history here that I was sensing, but there's also a lot of unknowns, and there's a lot of mysteries with the oysters. There's a lot hidden. The oyster and the swan may have circled each other for a long time but never gotten it together. Something like that. Failed attempts at creating a kind of union, right? So the swan has been on the oyster's mind. The oyster is really taking over the reading. I'll try and tap into the swan in a bit. What was I saying? I've totally lost my train of thought. The oyster... The swan has been on the oyster's mind for a long time at this point that you're watching this reading. And there's a lot of fantasy that has built around it. If not fantasy, sort of illusion, delusion, mystery. There's a lot of mystery around this connection. A lot is unsaid, unspoken. There's just like a thick unknown. And there's a lot of fantasy that has been sort of projected into this space in which these two have not been communicating. I think the oyster is aware that once this conversation has started, if it's initiated by them, that this Ace of Swords is going to kind of slice through any illusions or delusions that they may have, and it may be kind of a sobering experience or a wake-up call for them, because the swan is their fantasy. This one is sort of their dream, but I'm not sure if that's always been the case. Perhaps in the past it was reversed. Perhaps the oyster was the swan's fantasy. I really do feel that this swan right now, though, is just sort of has almost been through, like, cycles are big here, right? We have this spiral. We also have the Wheel of Fortune, which always speaks to cycles and timing, and time is sort of speeding up when we see the Wheel of Fortune. So it's almost like there's something due here. There's a new era, a new phase of this situation that is due. That is the potential as we are seeing it, is that something has to move and evolve here, because there is an energy here that I think is largely has to do with the oyster procrastinating, that is creating a kind of slowdown of this Wheel of Fortune energy. When evolution needs to happen here, we're seeing the snake regenerates. I do almost think that the swan has sort of almost done their time with the situation, or invested as much in the situation as they feel able to, or as they feel that it is, that they've given what they have to give, basically. And they're moving in a different direction. So if this oyster is going to try and catch up with the swan, well, then they can go ahead and try and do that, right? That's what I'm feeling from the swan. I think the swan does sense this Wheel of Fortune energy of something changing, but they may be unsure whether what is changing is them leaving the oyster behind, or this oyster catching up. And at this point, they're not invested in the way they once were. They're not oyster or nothing, the way that oyster is swan or nothing about them. That's not what the swan is, the vibe the swan is giving me. Sorry, I just have to clear my throat. Sorry. Yeah, the swan is, I don't think that the swan is entirely rid of any kind of attachment to the oyster, but I have this sense that the oyster has put this swan through a lot. This is a long-standing situation, and at this point the swan has changed, has evolved. They're sort of willing to let this oyster go, but the oyster is not willing to let the swan go at the moment, as this energy stands. The universe is here right underneath the swan, so this swan has sort of been through a lot of change. The universe, I think this universe in the Moonchild is sort of the equivalent of the world in the regular deck, which speaks to kind of almost graduating between different cycles of life, right? Because the Wheel of Fortune is about the movement of those cycles, and the universe or the world is about sort of things coming to a culmination, like a real kind of end to a cycle. And the swan may feel like that way about the oyster. The swan may feel like almost, not that it's the situation has expired, but it's almost like the swan has given all they have to give. The swan has been through this. Many cycles have passed, and they just don't have any. There's this real sense, I think, that the swan has, that like this situation has reached a sort of culmination, or there's something in the air, there's something happening. But this one is also coming into a real interesting stage in their own life and personal power. Look at the person on this deck, Paul one, on this card, sorry. It's like they're holding like the moon and the cosmos like in their own hands. This one may have recently, been in a period of transformation, or at least if they haven't already, they're coming into this point of like really going through this incredible sense of personal growth, leaving behind a lot of things that weren't working for them. And it definitely seems like the connection between themselves and the oyster, at least as it was for a long time, is something that no longer works for them. So the oyster is either going to have to transform themselves, or this swan is going to have to let them go. And I think the swan knows this. If you are the swan, pile one, I think you either know this, or you know it deep down, or you're coming into this acknowledgement. It doesn't mean that the oyster cannot catch up, because the oyster, I think, definitely senses and knows that they have to, right? That they have to put in a whole lot of effort to repair. And it seems like that's where their energy is, that they're not burying their head in the sand and pretending that the swan is still available to them. That's not where this oyster is. We're looking at the potential of now. And as of now, the swan's like, you either get on my level or I'm going. The swan is already on their way. And I think that as of now, the energy of as of now is that the oyster gets it. The oyster knows that. There's movement here on the swan side. We have the Chariot here. So the swan is going places. It's funny, the Chariot isn't really a very swan-like vehicle to get somewhere. But this swan, as elegant as they are, is also very determined to improve their life, to achieve their dreams, their goals. Again, I'm sensing this swan has been through a lot of cycles, both personally and with the oyster, that have really depleted them. They're not in that space anymore. There's such a real palpable sense of movement and progress that I'm feeling for the swan, and the swan may feel that for a time the oyster really dragged them down, or this connection with the oyster dragged them down, and at this point they're not going to allow anybody to drag them down anymore. I have to sigh, my goodness. Okay, let's have a look at these bonus tarot to see if we can have any more info here on the potential between the swan and the oyster. Oh, we have another swan. And we have another Ace of Swords too. I love it. I mean, this is why I use multiple decks in my readings, is because I love these little repetitions and the kind of emphasis that can come through when we have more than one deck in the read. Yes, we have the Ten of Pentacles, the Ace of Swords, another swan, and we have the Four of Wands. If I can pick up this card, let's put these swans here. Let's have a look at this Ten of Pentacles. It's interesting because this is sort of almost, reinforcing this idea of the nest, of security, of building a strong foundation and surroundings, which seems to be the focus of the swan. The swan does want to almost graduate into a different stage of life, and that requires aligning with certain things. They do want to get their ducks in a row. Ducks? The swan has little, what are swan babies called? Baby swans. They want their baby swans in a row. It doesn't mean you want babies or family. Some of you might, that might be some of the swan's focus. Potentially, but either way, it doesn't matter. It's really about securing their life, and they don't want ambiguous situations, connections, as they may have had in the oyster. They want things to be concrete. When the pentacles are all about material, they're about material things, yes, but they're also things being grounded and secure and solid, and that's what the swan needs and wants, and will not settle for less at this point, of things being concrete. So it's not about fantasy for them anymore. There's a big fantasy reality confusion on both sides that is sort of a huge part, and has maybe been always a huge part of this connection. The swan isn't up for it anymore. The swan wants something to be real, or they're just moving on. I do feel that the swan perhaps would have liked to have shared their life with the oyster, would have liked the oyster to sort of come through or to grow or to evolve in such a way that they could align. But I don't know that they're not willing to wait for that anymore. And this Ten of Pentacles is certainly a focal point. I love that both the Swan and the Ace of Swords came through again. So let's have a look at this card. This is the little mini Oriens deck. This one, so this one is holding their truth, their sword. They know what they want, they know what they think, and there's something uncompromising about this. In the past, the swan may have gone through a lot of self-doubt, confusion. The oyster may have caused a lot of confusion in the life and mind of the swan. Not anymore. The swan is standing strong in their own sense of what is real and what they want. Yeah, this swan is just like really in a good headspace. If you are feeling that you are the swan and you're thinking, no, I'm not, then I do think that perhaps you are, maybe you feel that way today, but I think overall, we're talking about the overall movement of energy around you. So if you are otherwise relating to the swan, and know that you are in a good place, even if it doesn't feel that way every day, because I do think this swan has been through a lot. But it's those very things that have led this swan to this place of strength and power that they are in, or that they are coming into. It's just a very, very uncompromising stance. Yeah. Let me have a look at this Four of Swans. Four of Swans. Wands. I'm sorry, guys. Just laughing at myself. The Four of Wands. This reading is all about potential, right? So if you do have someone, you did click on this and pick your pile with someone on your heart and mind, and you are hopeful about it. Whether you are relating to the swan or the oyster here, like I said, I'm reluctant to prophesize or to say that this is absolutely going to be one way or the other. We're just looking at the potential, but the potential here is very, very positive for the oyster and the swan. And I think part of that, what is making it so, is the swan's personal evolution, although I think there has been a lot of evolution and growth on both sides. The oyster is maybe not quite as evolved as the swan, right? But they're not far behind, and certainly actually closer than the swan might think. The swan may be really acknowledging the fact that the oyster couldn't grow with them, or is still stuck in some kind of perhaps less mature mind frame. I think for whatever reason the swan may not be aware of what's going on in the oyster's life, that the oyster has been growing and changing and evolving and transforming, but the swan is not aware of this. There's a sense that the oyster is very closely watching the swan, but the swan is no longer watching the oyster, if they ever were. So it's like the swan is kind of not privy or just not aware of whatever's going on in the oyster's life, but the oyster is very, very much watching the swan and very aware of the swan sort of moving on, evolving, and all of this. The Four of Wands is a card of celebration, of festivity, of people coming together. It's a happy card, right? And this is sort of, this is the potential as we're looking at it. This crow, there is something slightly supernatural or mystical about this connection. I do think there's something particularly, and I think both parties know this. Both feel the flame. Whatever's happened here has happened, and this is now. It does seem like the connection between these two has reached a sort of culmination point, or it's the universe, the world, like it's there's an end of a cycle here, and there's this potential for positive forward movement and progress. It does feel to me as if the oyster needs to act, or sort of basically catch up with the swan and say, hey, I'm here, let's do this, let me put the effort to repair this so we can move forward together. Like that's what I'm sensing is the scenario. I do feel as if the oyster knows it and is willing to put that effort in. the question really lies with whether the swan really wants to give that chance to the oyster. They may have given past chances. I'm sorry, it's kind of late. The swan may have given the oyster plenty of chances in the past, or just has lost faith in the oyster. So whether the oyster can convince the swan to give them one last try, that seems to be the question mark that is hovering over this potential. The oyster is going to have to step up and put in effort, is going to have to stop themselves going around in these loops. They're going to have to speak clearly, and let this Ace of Wands sort of separate truth from fiction in this situation. And yeah, with this Ace of Swords, I was sensing like this oyster really fears the truth, fears sort of having their bubble or their fantasy of the swan burst and have to, like, I think they fear a kind of wake up call and just like the sobering light of day on this connection, because there's so much dreaminess and fantasy around it on the part of the oyster. The swan, it may have been that way for a time, but I think this one is quite clear-eyed at this point, that the oyster may just never, this is just a potential that can't be lived out. And it just seems as if the swan is sort of has accepted that. At the same time, I do think the swan is sort of maybe sensing this oyster trying to catch them up or catch up to them. Yeah. It's, yeah, this Ace of Swords is really kind of, this feels to me a big part of why the oyster is not yet, reaching out to the swan, is actually fearing letting go of their dream of the swan, or their dream of what this could have been, or the potential, the dream of the potential, right? It's really hard for the oyster to let that go and actually face the reality of this situation for some reason, which is strange. I mean, yeah, it's definitely getting and feeling that the oyster has made a sort of fantasy of the swan. It may have been that they needed that fantasy in order to keep them afloat somehow, or help them through hard times, this belief of there was some kind of reunion with the swan on the horizon. But now it's come down to the wire, and they have to act on this. And it seems like the thing that's really preventing them or blocking them is fearing the swan's truth, or that the swan doesn't feel the same way, or this potential actually is in their mind. All of these things. Yeah, let's have another quick look at the Ace of Swords cards here. Yeah, it's like sorting what is concrete potential, what is the reality of this, these firm materials, this brick here, and then there's just this dream sky. It's weighing heavy on the oyster, the amount of unknown here, and the idea that this clarity is going to come in, and the reality of life. Basically, it's pretty heavy, but that's basically where the oyster seems to be with it. Whereas the swan sort of seems like there's this dreamy sky, and this seems to be the sky that the swan is inhabiting, as if the swan is part of this dream world, and this oyster imagines that, but then they wonder how much is real and how much is just their fantasy. It's so interesting. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. But if this was your story, Pile 1, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know. I'm sure I will pick up on this narrative again, because I feel like it seems familiar from other readings that I've done. So yeah, do check back, and do like, subscribe, and notification bell, all the usual stuff that to help build the channel if you like it here, and if this means something to you. But it was a pleasure to read for you, and I hope to read for you again in future. Bye everyone. Hello Pile 2, you picked the pink Tourmaline. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are doing a reading all about the potential between you and whoever it is that you have on your mind. So I just want to reiterate what I said in my intro. This is a general reading. We're talking about the potential of now, the energy of now. Things, of course, can change very quickly depending on the approach that you take and that of the other person. Of course, we all have free will, but please never give your agency away to some random person on the internet like myself. Like, you know best about your own life. You know what's going on in your own life. So always be discerning. Take only what you feel is really meant for you and leave anything else, because I'm sure that is meant for somebody else, right? So pile 2, let's get into this and have a look at the energies as they currently stand. So we have the Lion here. We have Magic. Nice. We have Terrarium. And we have the Hyena. Interesting. We have the Lovers. We have the 3 of Swords. We have the Tower and the Fool. We have the Vessel. We have Growth. We have the Hermit over here. And I just have a few extra tarot from the Oriens deck that I'm going to look at the end for some more info on this on your particular situation. Pile 2. So let's just leave that there for now. I just want to check this frame so that you can see everything. You need a little bit more space over here. Okay, and let's get into this. Okay, so we have the Lion here. This Lion is very intently focused towards, now pile 2, you can be any one that you want to, right? Just go with whatever is resonating for you, whether you are the Lion or the Hyena, as I will be referring to you, but like certainly the Lion seems very, very focused in this direction. However, the nature of this focus is confusing. There is a lot of mixed emotions that this Lion seems to have about this Hyena. There is a real sense of waiting and observing and holding back. This is a very passive Lion. You know, and the Lion is not passive, right? Not at all. This particular Lion has a very kind of wait and see vibe. Again, and I was feeling this in pile 1 too, that we're asking about the potential of a situation. However, I do feel like these two have a long history. This isn't fresh, this isn't new, they've been through certain cycles together. So this Lion is giving me a feeling of being somewhat jaded about this connection. Yeah. But there is still some degree of investment here because there's still emotion invested here. But it's it's very passive, as I said. They're being very, there's inaction. This Lion is not acting on this. They're not speaking on this. They're not planning to. They're very carefully observing the movements of this Hyena. This is interesting. Let's move on to this Magic card. So what I'm feeling here strongly, pile 2, is that this Lion, that there's these very strong mixed emotions, right? So we have this Magic card. I feel like this Hyena created a kind of magic in the life of the Lion, or they make the Lion feel, or have done, things that the Lion has never otherwise felt. It's like this Hyena has this capacity to just cast a spell on the Lion. And it feels like magic. There's something otherworldly about this connection. It's not like anything else. This Lion has not felt this way about anyone else. However, there is a little bit of a dark magic vibe, and I'm not talking about sorcery or witchcraft or anything like that. It's more of just an underlying sense of manipulation that this Lion fears. So this Lion has perhaps just become aware of their tendency to let the Hyena sort of lead them down a certain path or fool them somewhat, and they've done it before. They may have done it more than once, more than twice. Those of you watching this will have different stories, right? But this Lion has been through stuff with this Hyena, and they've wised up to it. They're watching and perhaps anticipating a movement from the Hyena, but it's such an interesting energy for me. This magic is twofold for the Lion. There's a magic that the Hyena brings to their life that no one else does, and it's undeniable. When they're not there, when the Hyena isn't around, life feels kind of colourless for the Lion. It's interesting because the Hyena card is black and white. The Lion's the one in colour, but they feel like the Hyena brings colour to their reality. It's this is reminding me of that Taylor Swift lyric. I don't know if you guys know the one I'm talking about. It's like, what is it? It's illicit affairs, where she's like, oh, you showed me colors I can't see with anyone else. It's something like that, right? So I think this is the way the lion feels about the hyena. And maybe there's something to that, why I'm thinking of that thing, illicit affairs. It won't be for everyone, but it may be that there's something slightly forbidden about it. Perhaps the hyena is attached to someone else. Perhaps the lion is. But I'm thinking more that there is some kind of vibe of magic or trickery. I think the hyena is very charming. And of course, the hyena, the connotations, right, with the hyena is that they're a little bit of a... always reminds me of the hyenas in the Lion King, right? There is, and we have the lion. The hyena is a little bit of a it's not easy to read the hyena. It's not easy to tell what the hyena's motivations are, because they're somewhat sneaky, right? Yeah, there is an aura of this around this, of there being some kind of element of deception, or with the magic card there's just some kind of trickery going on. All is not what it seems, but the hyena brings something to the lion's life that is just so out of the ordinary and so magical that although they may feel as if the hyena is no good for them, they've wised up and they're not willing to go along with things in the way that they might have in the past. They're basically not up for another round of whatever this is, or whatever the hyena has previously offered them. But they may have questions about what is the hyena's next move, basically. Let's look at this terrarium. Love this card. Yeah, it's a very busy card. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on beneath the surface. I think the hyena may have a lot going on. And I am feeling like if the hyena isn't attached to somebody else, I think they haven't necessarily been loyal or upfront or honest with the lion in their dealings with the lion. That there's a busyness or a chaos around them. There's a sense that the lion doesn't know who they're with and when, or yeah. There's a lot hidden, there's a lot underneath the surface, but again, there's a twofold feeling that I'm getting from this card, in that the lion sees different sides to the hyena. There's a lot of complex feelings here. On the one hand, they recognize that there's an element of deception or trickery going on, and the hyena has a side to them which is not great, and that perhaps they need permanent boundaries with the hyena. I think the lion is well aware of this. On the other hand, they sense a greater depth to the hyena. They know that the hyena has more to them, that they're not just this sort of surface charmer. The hyena may be very, very charming and just very desirable, or they just know how to work their magic, right? And the lion has fallen for this before. It's like now that they know the hyena's moves, so they're kind of trying to watch them before they do it, before they try something. But the lion is also watching from afar to see. The hyena has a different side to them. The lion very much feels like the hyena has hidden depth. And the hyena, I think, like all of us, probably has old wounds, old traumas that probably motivate some of their bad behavior. And the lion gets this. The lion sees this. But it's whether the hyena also sees it, or whether the hyena is sort of really content to just, play the same old games and is not in any way invested or interested in personal growth. And I do think that the lion has very much put a lot of effort. There's obviously a distance between the lion and hyena, and it will be different in terms of time difference. I feel like it's a no contact situation for the most part, or a minimal contact thing. But there's been some distance, some time here, because the lion seems to have grown quite significantly in the time in which these two have been separated. The lion has gone through a lot of self-development, a lot of growth, has done a lot of inner work. So that's why they can no longer see the hyena in the same way. But it's because of this inner work, and because of their understanding, a deeper understanding about, the things that motivate us to behave in the way we do. Because the lion has this wisdom, it affects the way they see this hyena, and they're able to look at with compassion towards this hyena. And I do feel that this lion is harboring some kind of feeling still for the hyena, but they're not the kind of emotions that will blind them. And maybe they have been in the past, like they've been blinded by this hyena's charm, by this magic that they bring into their world. Not anymore, but the lion is harboring a belief in the hyena's hidden depths and potential. This is a reading that is all about the potential, and perhaps that's the question you came here with. Those of you that picked the pink Tourmaline, you're wondering if your hyena has the potential to grow, because you see so much in them. You do see, you see the person that they could be, but then for how long can you invest in the potential if that person isn't willing to invest in their own potential? I mean, it is interesting. I'm not sure when it comes to this wild unknown animal spirit deck, how many of the cards are in black and white. It really strikes me that this card is in black and white. I haven't really noticed how many of them are without color. But it does make me feel like this hyena is just undeveloped in some way, or they're still living with a kind of quite rigid mindset, or have a simplistic outlook in terms of the way they see life and the way they see other people and their dealings with other people. They don't see the nuance that the lion does. They don't see the ambiguity around these things, and they don't see it about themselves. For sure, when I am picking up on a vulnerability here to this hyena. There is this hidden wound or hidden pain that I think the lion senses, and I'm feeling it too. There is something about this hyena. The lion may know exactly what it is. Like, there's something that makes the hyena act out. There's some kind of pain there. But this is always true, isn't it? I mean, we all suffer, we all go through stuff, but it doesn't give us an excuse to treat other people poorly. The lion does know something about the hyena's history. There's something, if they don't absolutely know it, then they sense it. Like, there's something that they can pick up on about the hyena. And this lion is so like, their whole energies, like, they couldn't be more different, right? The extraordinary sort of pride and nobility of the lion, and this kind of meek and sort of slightly, staggering hyena that just seems sort of weak. I think the lion can see this clearly, and I don't think they've always seen it. They are seeing the hyena's vulnerability. They do care about this hyena, and they see their potential. But it's whether there is the potential in the connection. This is what the reading is, and I wonder if the lion is unwilling to fool themselves about the potential in the connection, if the hyena cannot work on their own personal potential. Okay, let's move over to the vessel. Gosh. Yeah, with the vessel, of course, it's like something like there's energy moving through something. And there's a lot of orange here with the sacral, so sexuality is coming through to me. I do think that the hyena may have taken a certain approach to physical intimacy, to sexuality, that was quite superficial, and may take that approach in general. The hyena may have been unfaithful in some way to the lion. The hyena may have caused the lion to feel quite like a vessel, like a container, rather than a whole human. I think this has really, really affected the lion, the way that this hyena has just sort of not respected them, basically. But this lion has wised up about this. This lion is like, no. This lion knows that they're worth so much more than the hyena has given and treated them. And I think this lion is really trying to, or will be, reconnecting with their sense of confidence and respect for their own body, for what they have to offer, and all of this. I think this hyena has taken a lot out of this lion. But this lion is steadily and gradually recovering themselves, and they are really growing through this. This lion may have felt wronged by this hyena, but my God, this hyena has told them so much, right? About themselves, about their own worth. If you are the lion here, Paltu, first off, I love you. You're amazing. I can feel it. But you're doing so amazingly well in the way that you are learning. This hyena is a lesson for you, and you are learning this lesson, because sometimes we have these lessons and we completely miss like what they were, right? Or we stay in that pain, we curl up with that pain and we let it affect us. But that's not what you're doing, lion, or it's not what you will be doing, because perhaps some of you are a little sort of behind in this energy, but you are getting there, and you will be getting there. Is really this like hyena in your life is sort of a catalyst for you really coming into a real true sense of understanding your full worth. You are worth a lot, lion. I know that I get saying that I am just a person on the internet. Don't take anything I say too seriously, but take that seriously. You are an amazing creature, and you are worth so much more than if someone has made you feel like made you question your worth. I mean, this is the growth. There's a growth card just here underneath. I do. I've said this before, but yeah, I do read these cards blind. I love doing it this way. I love sort of pulling the cards, and I see them at the same moment that you do, and I love doing it this way because I get a very kind of intuitive and instant sort of feel to them, to what they're trying to tell me. But the synchronicity is, of course, always amazing. That's the way it goes with tarot. That's the magic of it. But yeah, growth. This hyena has been a huge catalyst for growth. This hyena has showed this lion so much about who they are, and it hasn't been easy. I can tell. I can feel it. This has not been easy. It's been painful. Humiliation is coming through. It's been humiliating at times, embarrassing. Yeah, you'll have different situations, but for some of you, I just think this hyena, you may at times felt as if this hyena made a fool of you, but of course we all know that it's the hyena that's a little bit of a fool, right? Yeah. Growth. You are growing, lion, and I'm just talking to you now, Paltu, as if you are the lion, because I don't think the hyenas are watching this. I don't think they are. Yeah. Growth. This growth, I'm also feeling, lion, that like this growth, you're just getting a taster of all the ways that you will be growing in the months and years ahead. Yeah, there may be a part of you that is still harboring some kind of feeling, despite how soberly and clear-eyed you're able to see the situation at this point. You may still be harboring romantic feelings, or I'm getting more that there's this sense of magic. Yeah, it's that special connection. And I think also, look, I mean, personally, I believe there's more than one person for all of us, right? People come into our lives at different stages, and we have things to teach each other. This hyena had something to, whether you believe in sort of soul contracts or there's this kind of pre-agreed, I believe that we sort of have these kind of soul agreements, and that we play a certain role in each other's lives, that's sort of pre-agreed. I think this hyena came to show you something about your own power and worth. If you haven't really received that lesson, now you will be, but I think most of you have, or you are in this process of incredible growth. Yeah. For some of you, I do think this hyena was sort of a first love, or really the first time you felt a kind of deep romantic passion. And I think there's a real sense of to bring it back to kind of black and white and Taylor Swift lyrics, because there's that other lyric from 1980. I am a bit of a Swiftie, but like, what is that line of the world was in black and white and you and I were in screaming color? There's this real feeling that I'm getting for you, Lion, is that like everyone else was sort of black and white, and then this hyena was sort of highlighted. It's like there was no one else like them, and they made you feel things that you had never otherwise felt. But with this Lovers card also, there's these two hounds that are kind of like wolves that are kind of, yeah. But there was something I feel like you and the hyena, if it wasn't already clear, were also very, very different from the get-go. Kind of night and day, right? You're just like really, really different personalities. But there was something pulling you together. Like there was some kind of recognition, and it was unlike anything else. That's clear, my pile twos. But there was something always at odds, right? There may have always been tension, there may have always been conflict and arguments, things like that. And you may have just come to see like that is what love is. Love is tense, love is stressful, love is chaotic. That's not true. That's not the way it has to be. That's not what love should be. Which is not to say that this wasn't a true love thing, or isn't still a true love thing. It's just that unless we can evolve to find some kind of peace and mutual loving support with someone else, then it's not something that we should be invested in, right? But you learnt a lot from this, but still this rich, incredible color here. And it's connected to this magic. It's like pleasure and pain are so close together here in this connection. We have the Three of Swords following the Lovers. We have this magic and this alchemy. It may have just, felt to you like pure, explosive chemistry, and like nothing that you have had with anyone else has ever compared to this, which is why it's impossible for you, Lions, I think, to just like cut this off, to never think about the hyena, to not... You're obviously... The hyena... It's obvious to me, pile twos, that the way this lion is looking over at the hyena, and my sense that this is you that's asking about this potential, is that you're not entirely done with this, because there's still a curiosity, there is still a glimmer there of possibility. But thus far, it's like this connection has brought so much pain into your life, a lot of growth, but also a lot of pain, and it's as if pleasure and pain have always been so close together here. Because it's as if that's the nature of this particular connection, right? It's as if you have felt or have convinced yourself, Lions, that in order to experience this pleasure, this alchemy, this magic, you had to endure pain. You had to endure some kind of not great treatment, sometimes feeling like a fool, all of these things that this hyena made you feel. Pile 2, and I think you're gaining perspective on that, or will be, that no, you deserve somebody that absolutely respects you and treats you and the way you deserve, that absolutely adores you and counts themselves incredibly lucky that you should even look in their direction. That is what you deserve, my Lions. Trust me on this. Trust me. You deserve more than whatever this has been, but I know the question that you have is whether there's potential for it to become something else, right? We do have the Tower here under the siren there. Just give that a minute. There is the Tower here, that it's sort of underneath this magic terrarium. I think you're aware that if you open the door, let's say this hyena comes to knock on your door, if you open that door, then you also open up this possibility for disruption and chaos. The Tower disrupts things. The Tower at times can completely topple over structures, solid structures, and you seem very solid right now. The energy as it stands, you seem very solid. You seem clear, you've gained perspective, there's a lot of growth that's happening, and you do not want that growth to be disrupted by this hyena's kind of slightly unpredictable energy. I think you're very aware of that, Pile 2. Like, you're very, very aware that we're speaking of potential, but you've been through these cycles with this hyena, and that's the way it's always gone. It's always ended up in the same place, which is in chaos, heartache. But along the way, you gained things. You got to experience this incredible alchemy. The Fool, and you know, I don't usually read the Fools in such a simple way that I just think of foolishness, but I do feel that, you know, Lions, you have felt as if you were a fool for this person, as if you fell for them again and again, blindly. You just let it happen because you wanted to feel the pleasure, the romance, the alchemy. It's like you followed this. There's this white hound, which is also on, these are two different decks as well, the Moonchild, and this is the Serpentfire. We have this white hound. Interesting. It's like you followed this hyena. I don't think that you're willing to do that anymore because you're perceiving it as being sort of a blind fool. You know what happens when the fool is about to sort of jump right into the unknown and is taking a risk. But you've been there before, Pile 2. You've taken that risk and you know where it ends up. And I think this is what you have been trying to tell yourself. But it's not an easy thing. It's like, it's as if you need like to put a note on your fridge or just like post it on the wall, reminding yourself, you know this cycle because you've been through it. And we also have the Hermit over here. The Hermit speaks of solitude and introspection, right? Going within to find the answers. We have the Hermit though over here on the side of the hyena. What I feel is that if you're wondering, is this hyena prowling? Are they around? Are they going to try and re-enter your world? It does seem like the energy as it stands is that there's growth that needs to happen on both sides independently of each other. So I'm not going to tell you, although, you know, you can probably tell, Lions, that I'm not feeling like this hyena is quite deserving of you as it stands. As of the time you're reading, you're watching this reading, it definitely seems that you are both in a state of needed introspection, self-reflection, and solitude. That there's not a potential for you right now to grow together. You both need to go to your separate corners, and I think you have been for a while, but I think this is still the energy, right? The shared energy is that you both need to go within, look within, and reflect on this privately and separately, because there's still so much that you have to learn from each other. But I think at this point you're going to be learning those things in separation as it stands, because like I keep saying, this is the energy of now. I'm not going to be one that's telling you what to do with your life or what's going to be happening months from now. I'm going to look at these tarot cards to gain some more info here about the potential. We have the High Priestess in reverse, we have the Four of Pentacles, and we have the King of Swords. So right away, Pile 2, I'm feeling, so the High Priestess is a card that's all about intuition and higher knowing, right? This High Priestess is in reverse, and it's under this Hermit, which again is about introspection and going within for the answers. But it's like this High Priestess, the Hermit kind of has to go on his or her little pilgrimage, right, to find the answers. But the High Priestess just has them. She has this direct line to the divine, really, the High Priestess. Immediately what I felt when I saw this reversal, that it's almost like you feel like, independently of this hyena, Lion, you may feel as if you are someone that's intuitive, that is very much in touch with their spirituality and their inner compass, and you know which way you're going, and when it comes to, for instance, your friends' lives, perhaps you're very good at giving advice and giving insight. And in other areas of your life, perhaps you're very guided by your intuition. It's just like this hyena seems to have this magical alchemical ability to completely dismantle that ability you have to access your intuition and follow your own inner guidance. And also I think that they may know that. They may know that they have this ability to, this fool, to sort of make you weak, basically. Make you weak at the knees, make you sort of slightly lose yourself for them. I think they know it. I think you both know it at this point. And it's like, again, it seems like the Hermit, that the only growth here can be done separately. It doesn't mean that this can't come back around, but it's just like, as it stands, this reading has been mostly, well, basically entirely from the perspective of the Lion, and it's the Lion's energy that I'm mostly tapped into here. The Lion is aware of the risks of engaging in any way with this hyena. This Four of Pentacles, this is an interesting Four of Pentacles. It's a kind of wombat. When I saw this, I wasn't sure what sort of creature that. I think it's a wombat. The Four of Pentacles is a card of holding on tight to things, of not wanting to share. I think this is a shared energy. I think that you are not communicating, or like I said, maybe you're communicating at a minimum, or perhaps you cross paths at times. Maybe you have mutual friends, or there's some kind of community that you share. I don't think that you're in direct contact, but I do think, energetically at least, you're both really holding on to this. You both don't think that it's over. That's why this real sense I had initially of the Lion is sort of watching for the hyena's next move. There's this shared sense of this is never really over, because how can we repeat this chemistry? We can't repeat this with anyone else. This is followed with the King of Swords, and the King of Swords is, the King of Swords is mature, is a mature masculine energy that is very knowledgeable, very intellectual, knows their own mind. Can also be sharp and quite harsh with their words. Although I'm not feeling that that's... I'm not feeling that's that's not this hyena's game. This hyena is more of a charmer, an emotional, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But this King of Swords, I think it's more about you, Lions. I'm just taking for granted that you're the Lion. If you are the hyena, then move on. Move on out of this reading. I don't know how you found yourself here. No, that's harsh. Hello, hyena, if you feel like you're a hyena. Yeah. King of Swords energy is really, I'm feeling like this King of Swords feels very much like you, Lion, has to do with the wisdom that you are coming into as you go through this process of the Hermit and really claiming your High Priestess intuition and your strength and allowing this growth to happen. I think there's a lot of maturing that's going on with you because of this situation. I'm really not feeling or getting any sense of how this hyena will be growing and developing over the coming months. That's not what's coming through. That's not what's presenting itself to me. I'm just getting a huge sense of your growth, Pile 2, that you are just really coming into an interesting stage of life where you're able to feel stronger and wiser. You're able to say what you really want to say and just feel, just strong and powerful. You may sense that this isn't entirely over, and I do sense that too. But the energy as it stands is more about your personal growth and what you are and are not willing to accept. It does feel a little like in the past you might have felt as if your emotions kind of overrid your logic. And of course we have to create a kind of balance, right? We don't want to be blindly following our emotions. You may have felt like this hyena just had this way of sort of manipulating your emotions somewhat. But the way you're growing, it's like that's not going to be possible. So if they come back to you with respect, with understanding, with maturity. It's just, I feel like you know that you know, Paltu, like, you know what you're willing to put up with and what you're not, so you'll know whether you're willing to let them in, that you'll be able to trust your own judgment. That's something that the King of Swords can do, right? There is a kind of judge-like vibe to the King of Swords. It can be harsh, but it's also, there's this clarity and this cold hard clarity, and that is what the energy is currently suggesting to me, that you're moving into this state, at least in regards to this hyena, where you're like, you're not going to let your emotions blind you anymore about them. So you may feel as if this isn't entirely over. You may both be struggling to let this go. However, good luck to this hyena if they want to get past this King of Swords energy that you're coming into, where you're not going to let anybody, you're nobody's fool anymore, Lion. If you felt that way in the past, then this was all a learning curve for you, but not anymore. No, not the way this energy is looking. Also, the crow on this card, the crow is very supernatural to me. I've been seeing lots of crows lately. In fact, there's quite a lot around where I'm living. And I see the crow as sort of quite a supernatural sort of messenger. So I do think it's necessary for this high priestess, to reclaim this high priestess, your inner high priestess, your connection to your intuition, which may be functioning very well in other areas of your life, but it's like when it comes to this hyena, no. but you're moving away from that, and you're reclaiming that, and you're thinking with greater clarity, and it's like bridging your reason and your logic and your sharp mental swords energy with your intuition and your high priestess energy and the knowledge of the hermit, bringing all of these things together so that you can make clear decisions and create clear boundaries in your life. Wow. Yeah, that's quite a long read. Lions, pink tourmalines, if you're resonating with this, then yeah, let me know. Leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys. It was a pleasure to read for you, and I am rooting for you, and I want the best for you and people out there on the internet. Do like, subscribe, notification bell, all the usual stuff that helps support the channel as it grows, because it's still really very new. But it was a pleasure for me to read for you, and I look forward to reading for you again. Take care, everyone. Bye. Hi, Pile 3. You picked the Labradorite, and welcome to your reading. Today we're asking all about the potential in your connection. So whoever it is that you have on your mind, when you came to this reading, we're looking at the current energy. So of course, energy is always shifting around us. It's all about the choices we make, right? We always have free will. Don't ever give your agency away to somebody on the internet like myself. You'll know what's meant for you. Take what feels like it's for you. These readings are very general. Leave what doesn't. Trust yourself. My intention here is to offer clarity, guidance, for you to know that you're not alone in whatever it is that you're going through, right? But it's not to tell you the way your life is going to be, and it's not to make any prophecies or things like that. So, yeah, this is the energy as it stands. Energy is always subject to change. Trust yourself. Pile 3s, Labradorites. So we have the Lamb here. We have Primordial in reverse. We have Mycelium. And we have the Lizard. Amazing colours on this card. We have the Knight of Pentacles. We have the King of Pentacles. Interesting. We have the Ace of Wands. And we have the Nine of Swords. We have the Unseen. We have Sacred. We have the Emperor here. And I just have a few of the Oriens mini tarot here, which I'm going to look at the end of the read for some further information for you guys on this particular situation, whoever it is that you have on your mind. Let me just check the frame here that you can see everything. Just shuffle a little bit in this direction, and then we'll get going. Okay, so we're starting off this read with the Lamb. Of course, now I'll be sort of speaking of the Lamb and the Lizard, but you connect with Pile 3 Labradorites, connect with whoever you connect with, right? So yeah, just go with whatever feels right for you. But the lamb here is that the lamb is a very gentle energy. This particular lamb, for me, there's something, this lamb is very mesmerized and is very sort of, this lamb has the feels for someone. This lamb is feeling very romantic, whoever they are. Almost in a kind of googly-eyed, sort of dreamy way, this lamb is sort of, it's interesting because the lamb is sort of, the lamb's giving off this heavy romantic vibe, but they're not sort of looking in the direction of the lizard, which isn't to say that it's not the lizard that the lamb feels this way about, but rather their own version of the lizard, if that makes sense to you, pile threes. Like the lamb, okay, so what I'm feeling is that the lamb is sort of infatuated or very romantically kind of entranced by the lizard. But the lamb either doesn't know the lizard very well, or they do, and it's all about their projection of the lizard, if that makes sense. It's the way that the lamb is sort of giving this vibe off, but it's like not towards the actual lizard. So yeah, either the lamb doesn't know the lizard in reality, or is not connected directly to the lizard. It's not like they have this big history or anything like that. It's just kind of, the lamb is sort of just enchanted somehow by the lizard. There's this big distance between them. Interesting. Or it could be more like that the lamb very much does know the lizard, but it's as if they sort of projected a sort of dream onto the lizard, and it's blinded them from actually really seeing the lizard clearly. So yeah, it could be either one of those scenarios, but you sort of, you see what I'm getting at, pile three. It's like this lamb is sort of lost in their fantasy. They could be in a relationship with this lizard and be sleeping beside them every night, but there's still a sense of projection or romanticization that I'm getting from the lamb towards the lizard. So we have primordial in reverse. Curious, because primordial is all about these very sort of base natural instincts, right? There's a mountain here that's in reverse though, which is also significant. Mountains have been coming through quite a bit on the reads I've been doing today. Yeah, I mean, it's just reinforcing this sense that of remoteness between the lamb and the lizard. So if this card was upright, it would seem as if there was this effort that the lamb had to kind of climb this mountain to reach the lizard somehow, or to bring this thing together. But the way it's upside down gives me the sense that they're not doing that, or they can't, or it's not possible. So it's as if they're just stooled there, that they kind of don't have this intention of doing that. So again, yeah, it's leaving me with this feeling that the lamb is sort of content with their fantasy of the lizard, rather than actually putting in any effort to see who the lizard really is and what this potential actually is. Interesting. Mycelium. This is a card all about sort of the fungal network, right? In the forest, trees connect with each other through the mycelium. So the fungi, or the fungi. It definitely seems, for those that there's a sense of separation between the lamb and the lizard, they are somehow connected. Of course, this could speak to social media, so it may be somebody that you don't know IRL if you are connecting with the lizard, of course. This mycelium, yeah, it's like there is some kind of real world connection, I do think, between these two characters. But there's distance here, and it feels very far away. Again, with this upside down mountain, there's a huge amount of distance between these two people. There is something very abundant and fruitful there, in the way on this sort of lizard side, like this lizard, there's obviously a reason why this lizard is sort of the object of the lamb's fantasies, because they're so colourful, right? They're so unusual, they're so abundant with something, but this lizard is looking in the other direction. And yet there's something about this lizard in the eye. I do think this lizard is aware of the lamb watching them or being in their energy field or something like that. This lizard seems very intuitive and very aware. I'm not entirely sure what the lizard feels towards the lamb, but there is some kind of awareness, or there's something that's registered here. This is reminding me of the Secret Admirer reading I did too, so if you guys haven't seen that, I'd check it out, because there is something quite remote for many of you, as if there's something sort of secret admirery about this. But we were asking about the potential here between a connection between two people. So it does seem as if the lizard and the lamb is just sort of almost like hypnotized or transfixed by the lizard. This is really weird. The lizard, yeah, there's just something so all-knowing about this lizard. The lizard is very aware, but also kind of doing their own thing. And this redness, I don't know, there is something kind of passionate there. The lizard may be very, very aware of the lamb's infatuation or passion or desire for them. And maybe in some cases, maybe this isn't entirely unknown. In some cases, I think for this one isn't so clear to me as the past two piles. This is a bit more confusing. Or there's just more people pick this pile or something, I don't know. It's not as clear cut to me. The lizard, in some cases, I'm getting this feeling of maybe encouraging the lamb's interest or attraction, or they're aware of it, or maybe they were invested in it at a certain point. Maybe they did once have some kind of involvement with the lamb in some cases, but there's a distance between them now. God, I'm sorry guys, this is one of the less clear readings that I've done. It's just like, it's muddling me. There may be a reason why it's muddling me. Let's move on to the other cards and see if I can get more clear on this. Ooh, the unseen. Oh, this is very intense. Straight off the eye, there's something about the eyes of, the lizard's eye was coming through to me, so let's say it's the lizard. There's some kind of intensity here that is shared, but there's, remove. It may, you know what, in some cases this might be, okay, so I'm going to throw out this scenario of what this could be. That you, whoever you are here, whether you're sort of, it's more like the lamb is the admirer and the lizard's the one being admired. Both may have questions about the potential, whoever it is. It may be somebody in your orbit. Let's say that you two work in the same building and you cross paths. Sometimes you're in the elevator or the lift together and you lock eyes. That's what I'm getting. It's something like this is someone that you've seen around, and that's why there's such a fantasy around it. It may have been like a brief encounter, or it's somebody that you've seen more than once. Yeah, something like that. And you make eye contact and you're like, is this just like a weird thing, or is there real potential here? Does this person think about me as much as I think about them? Whoa, this is interesting. The unseen, yeah, but there's so much that you don't know about each other. There's so much that it's like the lamb saw the lizard and thought, that's my dream person. Of course, the lamb and the lizard may have their own lives. One or both may also be attached to someone else that's coming through, or they don't know. Both may not know if the other is available. But it's like they've clocked one another, and there's some kind of intensity through the eyes, like eye contact, the unseen. But no one has yet made their move. Ooh, this is quite interesting and quite sexy. Sacred here, but this feels mystical even. It feels dreamy. It feels quite spiritual to both. It's almost like there's some kind of like higher connection here, or kind of soul bond. It's like that scenario was a hypothetical, and for others it may be that you are in closer contact, or there's something you know each other slightly better, but there's an overall feeling of having formed an intense connection at a distance, or feeling like there's some kind of higher or spiritual connection or recognition between you. But in terms of the physical and 3D, it's like you don't know anything about each other's lives, or not really, but you're both sensing there's something kind of spiritual or mystical to this. Both may have questions about whether they're sort of fooling themselves, but they're both sort of entranced by whatever this is. It's like really magical, primordial. Yeah, it's almost something, it's coming from a deeper place. It's as if perhaps did you know each other in another life or something like that. That's the feeling. Whoa, this is interesting. Let's keep going. The Knight of Pentacles. Look at this Knight of Pentacles. Very almost devilish, right? There is a lot of sexual passion and attraction. And that may be the question that the Lamb has, because the Lamb was giving this googly-eyed energy. The Lamb is wondering whether they're sort of, what they're feeling is actually just superficial physical attraction, right? There's a caution around that in making an approach towards the lizard, because they're wondering, are they just seeing what they want to see in this lizard? Do they just like the way the lizard looks? Do they just feel this sort of sexual desire? Again, it's coming through to me that the Lamb may already be attached to somebody, or both are, but they're sort of entranced by this deeper attraction that they're experiencing that is also very, very mysterious. We have the Knight here that's right next to the King. So the King of Pentacles is sort of, you know, the mature version of the Knight, right? So it does feel, and I was feeling this is more sort of the masculine and this is sort of more the feminine. It doesn't have to be that way. And of course, masculine, feminine are distributed, you know, you can be biologically female and very masculine and all of that. It doesn't matter, King, Knight, what have you. But it does feel like the Lamb is having this kind of inner conflict between more of a kind of innocent, underdeveloped version of themselves, which is quite driven by their passions and by desire, and then that sort of feels at odds with being this King of Pentacles, so being this mature and grounded person that, yeah, may have to provide for other people, may have responsibilities that don't allow them to pursue this lizard. For some it's like there's this big remove and you've never even spoken. For some you may know each other vaguely, but it's like there's this huge charge and there's this huge, it's very disproportionate, the intensity of the attraction in comparison to how much you know about each other and each other's lives with this unseen card. It's like you just don't know. If the Lamb is attached, the lizard doesn't know. If the lizard is attached, the Lamb doesn't know. It's like some of you may have had more contact than others, but still there's so much unknown, which is leaving all this space for doubt and confusion. But yeah, the Lamb is sort of back and forth between sort of almost wanting to give in to this deep passion that they feel about the lizard, or trying to have a more realistic approach to this and going about this in a different way. It's like they want to give in to the fantasy of it all, but there's a part of them that doesn't believe that in it, that it's just kind of, it's an illusion and they're just seeing what they want to see in the lizard. Interesting. So this Ace of Wands here, I mean, the Ace of Wands is kind of very much a card, all the aces are cards of potential, right? But the Ace of Wands is sort of a passionate, creative potential. So this question of potential, which was what this reading was about, is really, really looming large on both sides. Both have the same questions, and I really think that it's very mutual. But the Lamb seems more transfixed by the fantasy of it. The lizard seems more, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to get to this lizard. I'm sort of moving over to the lizard side now, so we'll see. The Ace of Wands here. Both want to take action, or both want progress here with this Ace of Wands. Both see the potential and feel it. What's going on in this card here? I can't really see this. It's a bit weird. For some reason this feels like a spillage to me. So again what I feel is that there would be risk in giving into this passion or playing out this potential. So why that is would be different for each, and on both sides it would be different. But this idea of something being spilled, it feels like there's an attraction and connection that's undeniable. It's undeniable. It's there. But it's like both parties seem to like not know how to approach it because it feels so intense and so different and so kind of dreamy and otherworldly, primordial, right? Sacred. It feels sacred, special, that they just don't even know how to approach it, either one, as if it's just a regular sort of thing that you can go and sort of flirt with someone. It feels so much more bigger than that for both sides. But both really want to, but it's coming with some degree of risk, and the risk may be not because they're involved with other people, or there is a heavy work thing coming through. You may just work in the same place, work in the same building, you cross paths a lot because of that. This sense of spillage or risk, it may not even be about feeling like there's things in your life that it would compromise, but rather, there was something also in pile 1, I think, about giving up a fantasy. Like if there's this distance between you and someone else and you build a fantasy world around that, because there's so much unknown, it's sort of like having that bubble burst would be difficult for both, but it's as if both have created this same bubble. Both seem to have the same desires and ideas about what's happening here. It is very mutual, so that may have been the question that you came here with, pile 3. Whether you're the lamb or the lizard, you're wondering, do they feel the same way? Am I imagining this? No, you're not. We have the 9 of Swords though under this lizard, so if you are the lizard, I think whereas the lamb feels very transfixed and dreamy, although there is this inner conflict about sort of their base desires and whether this is just a superficial thing, the lizard seems in a more state of I wouldn't say it's anxiety with this card. I like this 9 of Swords in this deck. There is fear here for the lizard. I think the lizard is very in tune with their spiritual side, with their intuition. The lizard is feeling it in a very deep way. The lizard may feel very nervous around the lamb. Nervous, in fact, of the lamb approaching them. There's just something about this that's unusual and different, but it's bringing up a lot of the lizard's fears about intimacy, I think. The lizard feels very seen, or as if the lamb is sort of gazing at them in this way, and the lamb definitely seems very hooked on the lizard, and it's quite intense. And whereas I do feel that there's something mutual about it, it does seem to kind of stimulate the lizard's fears. For some reason. It's like there's this deep intimacy between these two people, but they don't know each other. And it's bringing up the lizard's fears around intimacy, which may be quite deeply rooted. And we have the Emperor here, so this is a sort of the heavy template in the tarot of masculinity, right? If this lizard is the more feminine energy, it may be that they struggle with masculine energy, with engaging with masculine energy for whatever reasons. There may have been authority figures in their life that have really affected the way that they relate to masculine energy. And this lamb has sort of appeared in their life and is sort of enchanted and transfixed by them. And they're feeling it too, but they're struggling with something deeper here. The lizard is struggling. And it has to do with sort of, the way they relate to the masculine. Let's have a look at these tarot cards. We have the 6 of Wands, we have the Moon, and we have the Wheel of Fortune. The Six of Wands is a card. Oh, my batteries. Okay. The Six of Wands is a card that's all about being seen and celebrated. And on this deck, we have the peacock, which is a very kind of conspicuous creature. Like the peacock likes to be seen and celebrated, and is a gorgeous bird, of course, with this amazing iridescent feathers. This lamb makes this lizard feel seen in a very deep way, but it's also very uncomfortable because they may not be comfortable in really looking at themselves entirely, and that's intimidating. Maybe they don't feel completely comfortable with themselves, this lizard, so this lamb's attention on them in such a very focused way, is bringing up so much of their fears. I don't think that they feel, as it stands, especially confident. They may, the lamb may find the lizard very physically alluring, but I'm not sure that the lizard feels exactly confident in their allure. Interesting. Yeah, the moon here. The moon seems to echo this idea of the unseen and the unknown between them, right? There's a lot of mystery in this. And there's a lot of fear on the side of the lizard, but I think there's a general sense of what's real, what isn't. There's a white rabbit here, and of course the white rabbit, is a big symbol of, following this mystery wherever it goes, wherever it leads. Both of these characters are very, very pulled towards each other magnetically. Both feel like they're being pulled into this unknown, magical sort of thing. And both are feeling fear. With the moon, there's always something concealed, but because it's concealed, it brings up questions. It brings up doubts. It brings up sort of phantoms, all of that. It's so interesting, and it's like this moon and these fears are sort of creating this blockage, particularly on the side of the lizard. The lizard seems to be feeling it more intensely in terms of them coming together in some way. Hello, Pal 3. I had a bit of a technical failure, so there will be a jump here. I'm really sorry. I had a problem with my phone, and you'll probably notice a change in the lighting here. It's because I was doing this. I started this reading last night. It cut off. I did try and fix it, but this was a very, very interesting reading that we had going, and I wanted to do it justice, so I had to wait till today to continue it. I did preserve this reading very carefully so that I could return it, and I did get the chance to look over the beginning of the read to kind of tune back into the energy here. I guess with tarot, nothing seems to happen by accident, so I did have this sense, because it was moving in such a very, very interesting and sort of unexpected direction, that there was more here for me to sit with, and perhaps in a different state of mind as we are from one day to the next, that there was more for me to pick up on here. And one of the main things that was coming through to me, because we were shifting towards the perspective of this lizard, and there was a lot of fear coming up around the lizard feeling blocked, about the specifically the lizard's fears creating a barrier between themselves and this lamb character. And one of the things that I was actually saying, I remember saying before I realized the video had cut off, was, this moon card, often does speak to fear of the unknown, right? But it's followed by the Wheel of Fortune, and I strongly felt that there is something fated about this connection. And I did say something like, it could be weeks or it could be years, but either way, it depends in terms of this coming together, this Wheel of Fortune spinning, and this sort of fated connection coming, grounding into reality, because it has such a mystical or spiritual quality to it. And it's interestingly, that's when I realized it had cut out, and I was really kind of sitting with that insight. And for those of you out there that were resonating with this, I strongly feel like there's something here about timelines. If you may have resonated this as something that was currently ongoing in your life. You currently find yourself the lizard or the lamb in this scenario. Sorry. For others, I strongly feel like this happened a long time ago for some reason, and for others that it hasn't happened yet. The reason I said that, because the reason I feel this way is what I was saying about it could be weeks, it could be months. Whatever point you are in this, that you find yourself watching this video, there has been a significant, there is a wall between these two people. And it's not that the lamb hasn't contributed to that wall and doesn't have their own side to this, their own wounds, their own fears. But it's the lizard here that is really drawing me in. So I do feel that those of you watching are more likely to be connecting to the lizard, identifying with the lizard's energy, which is why this message is so important, that in order for these two to overcome the obstacles between them, it is necessary for the lizard to really go within and examine their own fears in relating to masculinity. It's almost as if, unless the lizard really explores some of these early life wounds and potentially traumas that have to do with authority figures, masculine templates, potentially father figures, they will come between them and the lamb, because the lamb is this gentle and very loving energy, but the lizard almost cannot see the lamb through their fears, which have to do with the emperor here, with their own relationship to the masculine. So there's a siren there. I'll just give that a second and wish it well as it goes on its way. Yeah. I did say at the beginning of this reading that it was as if the lamb was sort of looking at their version of the lizard, and the lizard was looking the other direction, right? But the lizard is actually looking at the emperor. So it may be that the lizard believes that they're looking at the lamb, that they're seeing the lamb for who they are, regardless of how well they know the lamb. But I think the lizard may be unaware of the extent to which they are projecting an image on the lamb. This projection, of course, can be double-sided, right? Both are projecting. But I do think the lizard is perhaps looking at the lamb but seeing this emperor figure. So yes, it could be a father figure. It could be some just sort of distorted ideas about masculinity that have maybe unconscious for the lizard, but it's something that the lizard has not dealt with at the time that they first encounter the lamb, which for some of you may be now, for some of you may have been years in the past, for some of you this may not have happened yet. It's the lizard thinks that they're perceiving the lamb, and that the fear or the anxiety here in the Nine of Swords that the lamb is bringing up has to do with the lamb, but it doesn't. It has to do with this emperor figure. It has to do with the way the lizard relates to masculinity. So, yeah, the masculine within, right? And that may have become distorted based on the lamb's experiences of life, potentially early life wounds. So, but it seems like when the lizard is first encountering the lamb, this is unconscious. The success here of the Six of Wands, the victory, is blocked by the lizard's fears. And I'm not saying that that's only, that the lamb isn't creating their own blockages here, right? But yeah, to return to what I said, it could be weeks or it could be years. It's all up to the lizard. It's all about the lizard going within and understanding that there is unconscious beliefs and patterns there that need to be healed and need to be examined. This is quite a heavy and quite a difficult message, and it's sort of this was an unusual reading. It very much, this connection feels, primordial. We have this primordial card here, but there is a blockage. So whoever this was meant for, this is a sacred connection. It's sacred to both parties, to the lamb and the lizard. But I do feel they're very confused about one another, very confused about the reality and how this could ground in reality, because it is so otherworldly and dreamlike, and there is so much that isn't known, unseen, that hasn't been spoken. If you are feeling you are the lizard, or if you're feeling like the lamb, it's really about clearing up your side of the street, right? Looking into your own depths, into your own history, to examine why you might have projected fear and anxiety into this unknown space. Because it's as if that initial attraction is so pure, it's coming from such a pure space, that I do think that the only barrier are internal ones that have been placed there, by both the lizard and the lamb. But you can really only clear up your side of it, whoever you identify with here. And the messages are coming through strongly for this lizard, that if you are identifying with the lizard as a sort of feminine energy, that there is a need for you to balance a kind of masculine, feminine, and really examine the way that you perceived masculinity as being perhaps threatening or unsafe. And that can be heavy stuff, like I know. Trust me, I know, guys, I know. But it's in some cases it feels as if the lizard is unconscious of this, or unaware of it, or unaware that they are looking at the lamb but seeing something else, but seeing their fears projected. And this is generating a lot of fear. Yeah, this is a very interesting, very mysterious sort of reading, but very beautiful. And yeah, there is something sacred, something very magical here, felt on both sides. And this reading, originally this is supposed to be all about potential. And it's very clear what's blocking the potential to me as the reader, but it's whether the lizard and the lamb can also see inside themselves and recognize that blockage is coming very much from within. This Ace of Wands, it's that spark, it's this initial spark of attraction and desire to take action, but the Nine of Swords is just sort of blocking it here, right? And the lizard's hesitation or fears, I think, perhaps have, or, maybe cause a lot of doubt and confusion in the lamb, and leading them to believe that this is just, or was, a physical, superficial attraction, when they perhaps deep down know that there is something very sacred and very deep about it. But the lizard's sort of perhaps changeable behavior or confusing behavior that may be difficult for the lamb to read has sort of, may have caused this lamb to sort of become lost in their own doubt, or play it off and say, oh, it was never really like that, or it's not really like that, it wasn't, I just wanted to experience something mystical and dreamy, but it was actually just superficial. It definitely isn't that. I hope this was clear. I hope that disruption didn't sort of throw you off. Those of you that picked Pile 3, if you are resonating with this, I would love to hear from you guys. This is such an interesting read for me, and I definitely feel like I could. I'm not going to do an extended on this, but I definitely feel like I could have, and I think it's quite likely that I will pick up this particular narrative again, and we can maybe go further into it. But for today, I think I'm going to leave it at this. But yeah, it was a pleasure to read for you, Pile 3. And yeah, sorry again about the disruption, and I look forward to reading for you again in future. Bye. Hello, Pile 4. Thank you so much for joining me. I really am very happy that you decide to spend a little time with me today. But you picked this red calcite, and today we are asking all about the potential of your connection. So whoever it is that you have on your mind currently, we want to look at the current energies, right? So current is key. Energy is always subject to change. I'm not here to prophesize or tell the future. It's not what I like to do here, because I believe very much that there is the potential of the moment, and that potential may or may not play out, right? It depends on the choices that you make. You obviously cannot control the behaviors of others. You can only make your own choices, right, in accordance with what is true to you. So please don't, as ever with this readings, exercise discernment. Leave if it doesn't ring true, then it's not for you. It was for someone else. Just take what seems meaningful to you. Okay, with that out of the way, pile 4, sorry. Let's see which cards you got. You have the Scorpion in reverse. You have everydayness. You have summer. You have the Octopus. You have the Two of Pentacles, the King of Wands, the Four of Swords, the Three of Swords. We have the Comic here. Interesting. We have the World. We have Strength, and I have a few extra tarot here from the mini Oriens deck, which I will look at the end for some extra information about your situation, Paul 4. So we'll leave that until later. Let me just check the frame here so that you can see everything. Let's just shuffle this slightly in this direction. Okay, and then we can get into this. All right, Paul 4. So this Scorpion, this is the first time I've seen one of these animal spirit cards come up in reverse. So there's obviously some kind of real significance to why the Scorpion, some of you may be Scorpios or be thinking of a Scorpio, of course. Why is it in reverse? I mean, the Scorpion is somewhat of a threatening sort of creature, and Scorpionic energy can be intense. It can be a little, yes, intimidating or threatening. And that may be key here, is that there's something about this situation for the Scorpion. So I'm feeling like there is an energy here of someone that perhaps has a deep fear of being hurt, being stung in life, has perhaps been hurt and stung in the past more than once. And it's actually, the way this is like at the head of the reading, it's the first card that's coming out and it's in reverse in this way. It makes me think that this person's fear of being hurt is so great, it's so intense that it's actually kind of like coloring their perception, their behavior. They're acting out of a fierce need to protect themselves, but it's disrupting the flow of their life. It's really creating, because they can't sort of open up to anything. If you perceive everything as a potential threat, or if you sort of meet anyone and find that you are drawn and attracted to them, but you can't help but play out all the ways it could go wrong, because that's what I'm feeling with the Scorpion energy. It's just like you shut down possibility, right? And that's the Scorpion. There's obviously someone else here. We have this Octopus who we'll get onto, but it's like there's no movement here because the Scorpion is so afraid. Yeah, everydayness here. I think this Scorpion has been reflecting on this connection with the Octopus for quite some time. They've been in a, perhaps as many of us have, just sort of a period of time where life has been a little uneventful, and there's been a lot of waiting going on. Yes, the pandemic could have contributed to that in a big way. There's been a period of inaction and a period of pause that this Scorpion has been in. However, I'm feeling like there's almost been a sense of renewal around this. Around this sense of, this Scorpion has struggled with negative thinking, with sort of sabotaging potentials, basically. And this is a reading about potential. But I do think this Scorpion is aware and has been coming into awareness of these patterns and how they have caused problems for them. I think, yeah, there has been space and time in their life recently for them to reflect on themselves, on their past, on the way that they've been living their life. I'm actually getting quite a sense of peace from this everydayness card, which is interesting because of this Scorpion blockage. It was like, I think that this Scorpion has had new insights into perhaps why things haven't moved forward for them, maybe specifically with the octopus, but in general. And it may be in more than one area of their life that they have just felt kind of ineffectual, or as if they couldn't create change and progress. But they're coming into a new sense of peace, where they are looking at how perhaps their negative thinking has created negativity, and how projecting their expectations can just create the very thing that they fear, right? Self-fulfilling prophecies. And I do think this Scorpion is sort of like turning a new leaf and is able to have some more faith in the future, because they're coming into a different kind of self-awareness about their past. So here's the summer card. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere like me, then we're sort of coming to the end of the summer, which is depressing, yes. It's, yeah. Where did it go? Anyway, but this summer I do think has been a really interesting time for this Scorpion, and maybe for this octopus too. I do feel like there is distance and non-communication between the Scorpion and the octopus. I do think that there is something has been established, or was, whether it was a relationship of some kind, a connection that got off the ground, or whether it was just a possibility of a connection. But I do think that the Scorpion and the octopus are very well aware of each other, and are also on each other's minds, although that may be in slightly different ways. We'll get more into it. But this summer has been a period of time. I think that the Scorpion and the octopus have been blocked from one another in a variety of ways. I think there's been very physical, real world restrictions that have prevented some kind of progress, but there's also been inner restrictions. There's been unconscious, or just sort of everything that I've just said about the Scorpion, and their sort of patterns of negative thinking about relationships, I feel like could almost apply equally to the octopus. Yeah, there's something that these two are sort of on the same page, but at this point, but unaware of it. Like they're not communicating, but it's like they've both gone through this period of renewal, possibly over the past few months of the summer, in which they've both been going through, independently of each other, quite an interesting state of transformation, which has left them in a position where they're far more open to each other than they were. Like the summer has been a very interesting time. Certain transits, collective and personal transits, may have just really created space and freedom for both of these characters to transcend some of their past problems, and both are now in a different kind of state of availability and possibility to be open to one another. But let's go further into this, because I want to know more about the particulars of this connection, how they're relating to each other. So we have the comic here, which is a sort of overarching theme, which is a curious card, right? We have this cat here. What I'm feeling is that these two perhaps know each other superficially, right? Perhaps they met in a bar somewhere, or a few mutual friends, and experienced each other on this very surface level. It's almost as if both have sort of social personalities, or have a kind of side that they show of themselves in company, and this is how they encountered one another, perhaps through a kind of mask of being sort of switched on, or just being sort of more in a kind of party context, right? But for whatever reason, these masks have slipped, or perhaps they did at the time. Perhaps these two people met each other sort of in a crowd, in a very social, more kind of light-hearted situation, but immediately kind of had a recognition of one another, or could see beneath their masks you know, perhaps one of these characters, I'm not sure which, is may come across as being very extroverted or have this almost like comic, like entertaining side to them. But it's as if the Scorpion, whether they saw it at this time or they're definitely seeing it now, is that there is this depth. Yeah, so I'm feeling this is maybe the octopus. It could be the Scorpion, but I'm feeling it's the octopus. The octopus may come across, let's say, as the life of the party, and very carefree, very fun, comical, very joyful. And perhaps the Scorpion initially was almost kind of confused by this, or not confused, but sort of like that's how they saw the octopus, if they had mutual friends or what have you. But there was something deeper there, and they're sort of seeing behind this extroversion to something quite deep. And I'm also seeing sadness. There's a sadness I'm seeing, and there's a cat on this card. I do think it's the Scorpion that's seeing this about the octopus, or it could be the other way around. That whichever one of these is the more extroverted, is also someone that carries some kind of sadness or pain or struggle. And perhaps the other person, which I'm feeling is the Scorpion, recognized this at the time or saw it, sort of read between the lines, or perhaps they're seeing it now. It's like they connected on one level, but there was all of this untapped. There was some kind of deeper recognition here. But either way, I do feel like it's the Scorpion that is very kind of aware of having had a slightly distorted or false image of the octopus, because they saw the octopus or experienced the octopus in a particular context, and it led them to believe certain things about them. Perhaps the octopus is, yes, life of the party, very popular, very well liked, just very vibrant, quite sort of magnetic, and just like good humored, just very fun. And the Scorpion is sort of, the Scorpion may have always found themselves drawn to the octopus, but they're seeing some kind of sadness, or there's some kind of real hidden depth to the octopus that they're very deeply attracted to. But for whatever reason, they're sort of, something came between them, and I think it has to do with a sort of mistaken identity or confusion around perhaps this octopus almost having not like a split personality, but just having different sides to them, which kind of threw the Scorpion off, because the Scorpion is not an extrovert. The Scorpion is a bit more fragile and kind of watches their back in social situations. It's kind of quite cautious and careful about who they engage with. And the octopus is very free and very natural, or at least appeared this way to the Scorpion. Look at the octopus's sort of like, what are they, tentacles? What is the term for this? Whatever the leg things are. It's as if the octopus has a lot of people around them, a lot of people sort of want to talk to them, and the octopus is sort of entertaining many different people. It's something like that. This is very different to the way the Scorpion goes about things. And I do think that the Scorpion very much wanted to be close to the octopus. You know what I'm feeling is that for whatever reason, the Scorpion understands that the octopus has this hidden depth, or has this very almost sad, there's a sadness to the octopus, that there's something about them. And the Scorpion is quite taken by this and very deeply attracted to it. And they sort of want to get to this side of the octopus, but they're trying to figure out how can I have that side of the octopus? You know, who gets to access this side of the octopus? Like, is there, because they definitely want to. Interesting. We have strength here underneath the comic, and I do think I'm reading this strength card sort of more like how the strength card comes across in the tarot, which is sort of the lion tamer classically, right? It's another siren, just give it a second. The strength card in the tarot speaks more to compassion than any kind of physical strength. It has to do with kind of a moral strength, or a sort of inner fortitude, inner strength. But for me, I think of that card as primarily about compassion. And that is what's coming through to me in this strength card, is that it's like the Scorpion saw the octopus in one way, as if this octopus has this front that they project, and there's something entertaining or outgoing, there's something about it, but the Scorpion is seeing all of these other layers that are hidden. Like, look at the face on this cat. It's like the cat, there's something here, like there's these other pair of eyes underneath the cat, like somebody imitating a cat. The Scorpion is recognizing how the octopus has all of these layers, which doesn't mean that the comic layer, this surface layer of them, is untrue. Just that, my goodness, this octopus has these incredible layers and different sort of aspects to their personality, and the Scorpion is just sort of infatuated by that and impressed by it. And the Strength card is really speaking to compassion, that the Scorpion sees the octopus has a deep well of compassion and kindness, which I think is sort of the thing that really gets them about the octopus. The thing that most attracts them to the octopus is their kindness. Is a true sort of compassion that they find unusual. So how this Scorpion has come to see this or know this octopus in different ways, it's not clear, because there's definitely a distance there. Yeah. But either way, it's like the Scorpion is so... I think that the Scorpion may have retracted for self-protection initially with the octopus, because they saw only the surface of the octopus, this sort of comical, outgoing person, this playful extrovert. And now they're sort of perhaps perceiving the way they pulled back out of fear of, because of this expectation they have of being hurt and being quite intimidated by this surface side of the octopus. But now they're kind of right. It's as if they had this attraction. They pulled back because they felt somewhat uncomfortable or insecure or something like that. They pulled back, but then they were sort of watching the octopus and observing. And they're seeing that the octopus has all of these qualities that they like and also that make them feel safe. Because safety seems to be a big issue for the Scorpion. And compassion is something that they really value and need and want in their life. We have the Two of Pentacles here under the Scorpion. And as I said, it does seem like these tendencies of kind of retracting and scuttling off anytime they feel slightly threatened, these seem to be things that the Scorpion is really aware of and trying to work on and has been working on. We have the Two of Pentacles underneath the Scorpion. And yeah, what's coming through to me, we have two figures, but they're sort of the same person mirrored, right, on this card. The Scorpion really wants to connect with the octopus on a deeper level. Perhaps they have connected on a superficial level, but like they're casual acquaintances or something like that. That's what I'm feeling. These people have met, they have established some kind of attraction maybe, but it's something has come between them, and I do think it's the Scorpion's tendency to be overly self-protected or think the worst. God, there's a lot of sirens at the moment. This Two of Pentacles. Yeah, so the Scorpion really wants to get to this side of the octopus that they feel is hidden or not immediately accessible. They see the octopus has this kind of well of kind of loving compassion almost, and they don't know how to reach it, or they fear that perhaps they've created this barrier between themselves and the octopus, and maybe the octopus, they don't know how this octopus sees them or has interpreted their behavior. But with this Two of Pentacles, there's a real desire to connect on a deeper level because they know the octopus has this hidden or perhaps not so hidden depth. It may be just kind of a depth that wasn't initially clear to the Scorpion. And of course the Scorpion being kind of the Scorpio, the Pluto creature, is a real kind of deep psychological diver, right? Of course you may or may not be Scorpios. Those of you, if you're identifying with a Scorpion or there's someone in mind here, but there's a heavy Pluto vibe of being quite an intense feeler and thinker, and yeah, going quite deep with emotions, potentially brooding, of course. That's a very Scorpionic tendency. But with this Two of Pentacles, I really feel like this Scorpion wants to reconnect with the octopus, but on a deeper level. They may have formed a past connection that was more superficial, and the Scorpion wants and feels ready, now they've been through this period of calm and reestablishing a sort of equilibrium in their everyday life, because I was sensing that they had been through a tougher time. But it was during that time, I think, that perhaps they were able to really examine some of their tendencies and negative thinking, etc. But I think they're at the point now where they feel secure enough to approach the octopus, but they have a desire to really talk deeply to the octopus. Yeah, what keeps coming through to me is this sense of like, how do I get to this side of the octopus? The octopus tentacle-like things, it's like there's this buzz around the octopus, and it's like the Scorpion wants to, in very kind of Scorpio-like fashion, wants to cut through this extroverted, comical side and get right to the heart of the octopus, to speak right to the octopus's heart, to their compassion. And they're contemplating how to go about that, and there's a lot of doubt about if they can, if they should. It's less should. I think the Scorpion really wants to. The doubt here and the uncertainty and the kind of typical Two of Pentacles back and forth is about how to access the octopus, or how to speak to the octopus so as they might reach their heart. This is interesting. Yeah, the Scorpion really has their sights set on the heart of the octopus. The King of Wands here under everydayness. Yeah, this person has really been putting a lot of effort into everyday practices. So there's a sense of recovery around this. This person, yeah, may have just been in a dark space of some kind. I do think this person has been meditating and going within and connecting in a spiritual sense. Yeah, that's coming through strongly, and this has really bolstered their optimism, their sense of hope, and also their confidence. King of Wands, of course, is a very confident figure, and, you know, is able to just make things happen and isn't going to kind of hold back for fears about whether they're capable of doing something. The King of Wands is very powerful. So it's like this Scorpion is sort of recapturing their confidence and their strength and their personal power through certain everyday practices, which may include meditation, connecting to nature, taking walks, spending time alone, all of this, to rebuild their sense of self, of hope, of connection to life. But they really can't stop thinking about the octopus. And they want the octopus to be a part of this change or this renewal that they're going through. They just want the octopus. They're just really crushing on the octopus, I think. Again, I don't feel that the Scorpion and the octopus know each other particularly well. I mean, I went through that. Like, clearly the Scorpion misunderstood the octopus initially and is now seeing, you know, there's not an established relationship here. I don't think, for those of you that pick this pile, this is sort of like you're ever with this person, because there's been so much misunderstanding, sort of mistaken identity, right? The Four of Swords card here under the Summer, this again is like a card that sort of seems to be suggesting meditation or a period of convalescence or going within, creating inner calm. We have the full moon here, which just passed. We just had the blue moon in Aquarius. That may have been very significant for the Scorpion. This Four of Swords. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be just emphasizing for me again that it's been a period of sort of retreat for the Scorpion, of regaining their strength, of reconnecting with their relationship with nature, their relationship to themselves, to their spirituality, to their intuition, all of that. because perhaps they had let these things slip away from them. They had become a bit lost in a kind of dark tunnel for a period of time. This yellow is popping too, and that's there on the Scorpions. The yellow is the solar plexus, and that's all about personal power and confidence. It's very much, these attributes of the King of Wands, trusting your ability to be able to make things happen. For a time, I think the Scorpion was just feeling sort of weak, as if they didn't have the capacity or like the bandwidth or something to create their own life, and they were in no sort of state to pursue the octopus, who I think they perceive as being very powerful, very almost a sort of Queen of Wands type, right? Doesn't have to be a male. The octopus doesn't have to be female. Anyone can be any gender here, to be clear. But they're sort of masculine, feminine archetypes, right? And it's this sense that perhaps because the Scorpion was struggling with sort of recapturing or developing their own sort of King of Wands side, and they perceive the octopus as being this very developed sort of Queen of Wands type, that they couldn't match them, or they didn't have that kind of strength or power. And they do see the octopus as very powerful and very sort of multi-dimensional, but I think that's creating some more of the confusion of the Two of Pentacles, of this octopus has so many sides to them. And perhaps this Scorpion has a sort of fantasy about the octopus, about, who the octopus is, and whether they could actually partner with the octopus, right? Because they've perceived their gentle and loving and sort of sad side. There's something about sadness here. But the octopus also has this kind of free and wild and kind of unpredictable side. And it's creating a lot of back and forth and doubt within the Scorpion in terms of trying to figure out just how to approach this octopus. The octopus is so dynamic. The word dynamic is coming through really strongly, or at least this is how the Scorpion perceives them, because I'm not really tapping into the octopus's energy at the moment. It's really all about what the Scorpion is feeling and has been going through. They perceive this octopus as just so dynamic and multifaceted. And just because perhaps the octopus does have this softer side, it doesn't mean that they're going to share it with the Scorpion. Yeah, I think that's how they feel. We have the Three of Swords here under this octopus, so yeah, it's like this Scorpion just sort of sees in this octopus has this very, spiritual, because I'm seeing these snakes here, which I do find to be a very spiritual emblem of regeneration and of spirituality. And that, I think that the Scorpio perceives that too in the octopus, because clearly the Scorpion has a very spiritual side and has certain practices and sort of routines. And perhaps the octopus has too, like the octopus has a very developed spiritual side that the Scorpion is connecting to. There is something here about sexuality. I think that the Scorpion is very physically drawn to the octopus and has a lot of sort of fantasies about this octopus. But again, there's something really shape-shifting about the octopus through the eyes of the Scorpion. There is something coming through about the Scorpion wondering whether the octopus is sort of what is the octopus looking for? Does the octopus want a partner? There's something unpredictable and unconventional about the octopus. So they're thinking, does this octopus, are they looking for love? Do they have someone in their life? If they do they have more than one person in their life? There's questions like this that they have, but perhaps this octopus comes across as very free in their body and their sexuality. And this Scorpion seems to be, to me, in my mind, a little bit more traditional and also kind of, let's say, monogamous, and sort of gets very fixed on one person and has these kind of slightly high romantic ideals about how they want something to look. And I think they've sort of feel a little nervous and in two minds about whether this octopus wants those same things. Like, is this octopus looking for love? I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not being able to pick this up, to be honest, but it's like, it's more like there's this energy here that this scorpion has sort of projected a lot, or has high hopes around the octopus, but there's so much that they don't know, it seems, about them, or there's this shape-shifting sense and unpredictability about them, that they're very wary of the potential for heartbreak here. This is the Three of Swords. They're very wary of the possibility that this octopus is just going to kind of break their heart, and quite easily. So they're obviously very, very emotionally invested in this octopus. We have the World here on the side of the octopus, which of course can speak to physical distance, and I was picking up, yeah, there's been restrictions between these two, both internally but also external restrictions. They may be in different locations, different countries, there may be an element of travel involved. But again, I was getting this free-spirited feeling from the octopus, which I think is both the perception of the scorpion, but is also true, is that they're perhaps also someone, yeah, they're very non-conventional, or sort of undomesticated in a way. And it's as if the scorpion has designs of wanting sort of a more conventional partnership. This octopus is very free-spirited, and perhaps they travel a lot, or perhaps they need a lot of freedom and independence. And the scorpion, again, but then the scorpion seems to get into these sort of loops of anticipating hurt and pain, right? Because this is what went wrong initially. But now it's like they've developed feelings for this octopus, and now they're going back to this sort of, well, what if this octopus just doesn't want what I want, and blah da 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 da. I won't get lost in those doubts, but like there's something about this, because it's such a free energy, like just such a free and sort of worldly energy that this octopus has. Let's have a look what these extra tarot cards we have in terms of potential. We have Temperance in reverse. Temperance is a card of balance and moderation, and also synthesis, right? Bringing two different elements together. But it's out of balance, right? The Temperance card, something is out of balance here. And I think it may be about, so this is about the potential. And it's about whether these two want the same things, or whether there's this possibility of blending their energies in a harmonious way, which is what the Temperance card is all about. It's about this harmonious blend of elements. We do have this crab here, which is Cancerian, right? So this scorpion does have strong water vibes, so if it's not Scorpio, it could be Cancer, which is another sign that tends to retract when they're feeling threatened quite easily. So it does seem to me that this Temperance is a blockage at the moment, because this scorpion, and I'm not getting in any way that the octopus, to be honest, I'm not really sensing whether the scorpion is on the mind of the octopus. The octopus is very clearly heavily on the mind of the scorpion, and the scorpion has very high, really wants to make something of this, and is hoping that the octopus is sort of their one, basically. But it seems as if there's an imbalance here, or there's some kind of blockage in terms of potential that has to do with this scorpion's tendency to pull back in fear. It's creating an obstruction here, because there's obviously a lot of unknowns, and there's this conversation that the scorpion wants to have with the octopus, but it's at this point, it's like, can they even have this, because they fear, it's like falling back into old patterns about being unnecessarily self-protected or guarded. And this octopus seems so free and so unlike that, and so willing to be kind of emotionally fluid and all of that. The scorpion seems just so much more internal and sort of serious and sort of quite broody. The Page of Wands here, this is a really good card to see when we're asking of potential, because it is kind of the card of you know, creative and passionate potential. It's the sort of the spark at the beginning. There's a raccoon that's kind of upside down here. What is this raccoon doing? Sort of looking sideways at something. The scorpion, is examining this potential and taking this action. The pages are messengers. So it's like actually getting into gear and making a move. This is what this is speaking of. It's like the scorpion is sort of twisting themselves in different shapes and angles, trying to anticipate the octopus's response to things, or this isn't a serious obstruction here. There's something very playful and wonderful about this raccoon, but it's like the scorpion is sort of, I think the scorpion is just still struggling to overcome negative and slightly depressive thinking that is blocking new, fresh energy, potentially in relating to the octopus, from coming to fruition, because there is just a very overthinking vibe, which is very Scorpio, you know. It's overthinking, but it's also going back and forth, and you know, that tendency that happens with worrying, that's very Virgo. So there may be a Virgo energy too with the scorpion. This kind of way we can fool ourselves into thinking if we just think about something enough, it will protect us from negative outcomes, and it obviously doesn't work that way. But this is a very, very positive energy here to come through sort of the end here, and we're finishing with the Lovers, which there's two seahorse-like things on this card. I love that. Interestingly, if these are seahorses are monogamous. And that seems to be like this question or fear that the scorpion has about the octopus, whether this octopus is like this very free and sort of free love, kind of independent. Perhaps they have many different lovers in different ports as they travel, like maybe they're like that. But I think there's probably no mistake here. Like, if you're the scorpion, of course, like, I can't, you know, they're all different circumstances, but I feel like this didn't come through by accident. The monogamous seahorses. Perhaps this octopus is actually just as romantic as the scorpion, but it's like the scorpion doesn't know. It's as if perhaps maybe the scorpion just doesn't know anything about this octopus's history, or even their orientation. There's something coming through about orientation. Like, is this octopus just very free, very fluid or something, and the scorpion is more traditional? But this Lovers card is speaking obviously to the potential for, and that was our question here, so we're ending with the Lovers. The potential here is very strong for a deep and loving partnership that is fulfilling for both, right? This is, I mean, what could be a better card to end on when we're asking about the potential between two people? We have the Lovers, and we have these gorgeous seahorses in a kind of embrace. So, yeah, if you're the scorpion here, then make of that what you will. If you're the octopus, hi there. you seem very cool. I don't know what you're up to, but you seem very fun. Based on what I'm able to pick up on this octopus's energy, very free and very kind of multi-dimensional and impressive. I think that's wonderful. But this scorpion definitely is kind of hung up on you, and I think is making plans to try and bridge this gap and sort of fulfill whatever potential there is. I wasn't getting a lot from the octopus in terms of where they are with this connection or what it means to them, but it was obviously this is a message more the scorpion wanted to come through. So yeah, this is a nice reading to end on, and if you did connect to this, I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, notification bell, all of the stuff. It helps to build this channel, which I'm really loving doing this, and I'm loving sort of connecting with you. And I guess the more you engage with me, the easier it is for me to sort of pick up on you energetically and tap into your story. And yeah, I love doing this for you. And yeah, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to reading for you again, Pile 4. Take care. Bye.